Good evening. It looks like we are live. Welcome. Good evening. Welcome to a joint effort between Midwest Parent Educators. Thank you for hosting me tonight. I am Tricia Pohl with Homeschooling with Confidence, and we are going to chat a few brief minutes tonight about burnout and about homeschool and parenting burnout. And I came to this quiet space tonight to do this Facebook Live event, and as I was coming here, I had a moment of what I think sometimes parenting and burnout looks like. I'm just going to talk for a few minutes before we really get started. We're going to let people hop in. I see one joining us so far, so we're going to chat for a few minutes before we get rolling here. But I was driving here, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and it's dark, of course, as I drive over here the 7 o'clock hour, and I'm sitting at the stoplight, and it's on this big like 6-lane highway, and so I was waiting for the light to change, and just as the light changes, it's me and a car behind me, and just as the light changes, I turn and I look up, and these two men start running in front of my car, and I was very surprised to see them, and then I was very worried for these men because there are two empty lanes on either side of me, and I thought I better honk and warn them, and so I started honking, not at the men, but at just their danger and what might be coming, to try to warn other cars or whatever. And these men turned around, and they were very upset with me for honking at them as they ran against the light. And I thought, boy, that seems like a picture of parenting sometimes. It can be so discouraging as we parent and homeschool. We pour out, we try to help, we try to warn, and sometimes our kids aren't so excited about that. And so we're going to talk about burnout tonight. Maybe that's one thing that's burning you out, is that your children, your students don't heed your warnings, your thoughts, your wisdom. Maybe you're just in a season like we are here in Minnesota. It's been cold for a long time, since since September, I think, maybe only since November, but it's been cold here for a long time, and it's February, and we're just starting to feel the weight of winter. And I find that this is a time when a lot of homeschoolers start to really feel burned out, really like looking ahead and feeling like May and June are so far so far away, not sure we can finish the school year, feeling like we've just been in the trenches for so long. So I hope that as you join us tonight, you're just going to feel empowered and encouraged to go the next mile with your students, and that tonight will be some wind in your wings to keep you moving. If you are here and you comment tonight, we are giving away a free priority planner. So go ahead and feel free to comment, ask a question, anything. And Midwest Parent Educators, Shangxi is here. Thank you for being here tonight, Shangxi. She's going to randomly select a winner at the end tonight, and I will mail you a priority planner, one of our resources that I think might encourage you in this season and also in the next. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But let's get started talking about burnout. Lots of reasons why people might be feeling burned out this time of year. No matter the reason, no matter how you might feel burned out tonight, I hope you'll be encouraged as we talk. So, parenting is a marathon. It's not a sprint. 18 years of formation and sleepless nights and meals and correction and direction and math lessons, relation formation, maintenance. You don't just set the course one day when your kid is born and then you're good to go for 18 years. It's day in, day out, over and over again, built on sleepless nights. And as a runner of marathons, I can tell you that they are exhausting. Marathons are exhausting. They're long and they're grueling. And if you don't train for the marathon and run it wisely, you're likely not to finish. And so I want to encourage you to finish the race strong tonight. And so we're going to talk about burnout and some strategies we can employ to avoid it, to recover from it if we find ourselves in a season of that. So let's define burnout. What is it? It's a state of emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion brought on by prolonged or repeated stress. Maybe a true definition of parenting: prolonged and repeated stress. Psychology Today adds that it often arises from overwhelming demands, chronic stress, job dissatisfaction, and can affect various areas of life, including work, parenting, and relationships. Burnout symptoms include decreased motivation, lowered performance, and negative attitude toward oneself and others. While not classified as a medical condition, burnout can lead to more severe physical, mental, and health issues if we leave it unaddressed. Burnout is a big deal, and I think it's a big deal in the homeschool world because parenting and homeschooling just feels constant, one thing on top of another. So let's talk about some things that we can do tonight, right now, wherever you find yourself, whether you're at the beginning of the homeschool journey, in the middle, whether you're just a few months from finishing. Let's talk about it. So in a marathon, if you don't train properly for the big race, you're likely to be hurt. And so proper training begins with assessment. How far can I currently run? What pace can I currently run at? And that informs what kind of schedule that you need to set and how long you need to train even. And so I want to encourage you to take a moment tonight to assess where you're at in your homeschooling and parenting journey. What's going well in your home and homeschool? And if you're feeling burned out, you might say nothing. But I want to encourage you to ask God for an answer here. If you can't find one yourself, ask the Lord to give you one. Ask your husband or your wife. Ask a friend. Because I think when we assess things, we need to understand what's going well and also what's not going well. And so, I want you to think about what's going well, and then I'd like you to ask the Lord, or ask yourself, or ask your spouse, what's something that needs to change right now? And I want to caution you for making a really long list and then trying to tackle the entire list all at once. Generally, that's a recipe for failure, right? So we're just gonna, what's something that we can change? Something we can change now, this week, this month. What's one thing that we can tackle? And I think in an effort to not burn out and to be successful, I think sometimes we burn out because we're just trying to do too much. And so let's not try to change a whole bunch of things tonight. Let's think about one thing that we can do. Another consideration, another piece of this assessment is to ask you yourself, I want to ask you, why do you homeschool? I find that oftentimes people begin homeschooling in reaction to something. They're mad at the school, their kids have been bullied, their child's needs have not been met, they're upset. And these are legitimate reasons to begin homeschooling, but I don't think they're the most compelling reasons to keep homeschooling. And so things like this are what I often hear from parents as to why they homeschool. I hear, we want our kids to know God's love deeply. We want our kids to know what it means to love God in return. We want to spend time together as a family. We want to build better relationships. Homeschooling will not produce perfect relationships in our homes, but I think given the opportunity and the time that we have to pour into our kids and to stop mid situation and sit down with our kids and say, let's talk about this, let's work through this, those offer an opportunity for better relationships. They offer schedule flexibility and opportunity to tailor an education toward an individual child, teaching our kids to be lifelong learners. These are all reasons that we homeschool, but it's also not just our family. I hear this from a multitude of families as I meet and talk with families who are homeschooling. And so I think when you're feeling discouraged or if you're feeling burned out, the why you are homeschooling can be really helpful. It can be a really helpful place to return to and consider. It can help us take the next step if we're feeling burned out. And sometimes we are burned out because we've said these are the things that are important to us, or these are the reasons why we're doing this. But then our activity isn't aligned with our priority. And so I think that that's another thing to examine tonight as you assess, as you say, what's going on in our homeschool right now? Is what we're doing matching what we've said is important to us? And so if you want to avoid burnout or recover from burnout, aligning our activity with our priority can be really helpful. And unfortunately, as I came tonight, I did not bring a copy of my priority planner, but you can check out our website, homeschoolingwithconfidence.com, hswithconfidence.com. If you Google us, you'll find us, and our priority planner is on there. But the priority planner lists homeschoolers' 7 priorities, and they begin with the Lord and my husband and my children, and in that order. Those are rank order: the Lord, my husband, my children, and then I have other priorities like our homeschool and our home and our community and my children. I think I already said them, and then also myself. I get to be on the list of things that are a priority in my home. And so the priority planner lists those out, I ask myself and the Lord each week, what is it that I can do in each of these areas this week? And list 1 or 2 things. And then there's an activity column, and that activity column draws directly from that list I said I made. I want what I do every week. If I've told my husband that he's important to me, if he is a priority, then I want some piece of the activity I do each week to involve doing something that might bless him or encourage him or help him along his way. If I've said that my kids are important to me, but when I look at my community box and we have 7 things listed there week after week, and my kids are, the things that I've committed to do for my kids are not getting completed, then I can see very quickly that my priorities don't line up with my activity, and that can be a source of burnout. It can be a source of frustration and discouragement. And so I want to encourage you, as you think about burnout tonight, to look at activity and priority. If we're going to avoid burnout, if we're going to recover from burnout, we have to consider the importance of rest. You knew I was probably going to say this tonight, but I hope that this will be some fresh perspectives on rest for you. If you're running and you're training for a race, a marathon or any distance, you can't just put on miles. You have to consider rest. So built into each training plan are rest days. You don't run every day, and rest is of vital importance. And so if we're going to finish the race well, we must incorporate rest into our lives in a weekly, daily, seasonally, yearly kind of way. Full transparency, this is not a strong suit for me. I am not someone who rests easily. I have long to-do lists. I like to check boxes, and quite honestly, I just don't value rest enough in my life. And so this is an area of my life that I am always working on. If you've known me for any amount of time, you know I talk about rest and Sabbath, and that I often have trouble aligning those two things. And so I'm going to share some things that God has shown me over the years, and some of the things that I'm actively trying to do. Rest gives us space, it gives us perspective, and it refuels us. And so if you're feeling burned out, considering a little bit more rest is not lazy. It's a way that we can gain perspective and refuel to re-enter the race. So let's talk about some ways that you can incorporate rest strategically into your life. So I want to talk about daily. When my kids were young, and now my kids are old and they're off and out doing things most days, but when my kids were young particularly, and up until ages 10 and 11, we had a quiet time in our house. And so not everybody slept. For many years, kids didn't sleep, but they went to their rooms and they took a stack of books and they rested. And I rested. And so some days I did actually rest and take a quick 20-minute nap. Can I just tell you that a 20-minute nap does wonders? I took one this afternoon in preparation for being with you tonight, so I'd be firing on all cylinders. And so a quick 20-minute nap, a nap doesn't have to be 2 hours long to just rejuvenate us and refuel us. But sometimes just having a pause where you get a breath from your kids and from homeschooling and from laundry, and you take a breath, you do something that fuels you, like have a cup of tea or your quiet time that didn't happen this morning at 6 a.m., anything that would refuel you for the next few hours. Reading aloud to your kids is a way that I consider rest. It's fun. We are together. We're sitting often on the couch or sprawled about the living room, and we're not doing any other activity. And so I think even just a read aloud for your kids can be restful for everybody in the house. If you're not sure, ask your spouse. In fact, the 20-minute nap is often my husband's idea. He'll say, I wish you would take a nap today. I know you're tired. I know you're behind on sleep. And so he's an advocate for me to get rest, and he knows we run hard, and he wants me to be taken care of. So if you're not sure, ask the Lord, ask your husband, ask a friend, how is it that I can incorporate some small thing of rest into my day this week, and in a weekly way. Weekly, when you think about your week, I think Sabbath, we often celebrate Sabbath on Sunday. We stop from our normal activity, we go to church, but I also think Sabbath can be a way of life. It doesn't have to be legalistic or a guilt-ridden kind of thing. I will say that God talks about Sabbath a lot in Scripture. When he lays out the 10 Commandments, he spends the most time talking about Sabbath. And I think oftentimes we even bear rest or Sabbath as a burden around our neck. And Sabbath is a gift. God gave it to us as a gift. It's not something we deserve. It's not something we earned. Our work, God didn't say if you get all your work done throughout the week, then you can rest on Sunday on the Sabbath. He said to rest on the Sabbath because he knew we needed it. And so I want to encourage you to embrace this idea that rest can be a way of life, and rest is about refuel, and rest is a gift. And it's also a trust. It's a trust that even though my list is not complete for the week, I trust you, Lord, that you are in charge of our life, and you can manage the things that have gone undone. And so receive the gift that God has given you, and Sabbath, whether that's on Sunday afternoon or on Wednesday evening, whatever it looks like, find a way to create some rest in your week. This can be very simple things. I am a bath person. I'm cold all winter, and so a bath is a way I can warm up. And so a bath, a book. Exercise can sometimes be restful for me because I don't let my kids come when I exercise. It's me and the Lord, and a run, and I have a chance to refuel my mind and think and have some space. And so what fills you? It may be a different answer than something for somebody else, but what fills you, that is something that would be wise to incorporate in your week. In fact, it's one of the reasons why on my priority planner, I have a box. What is it that needs to be done for me this week? How can I care for me? I'm not the only thing. I'm just looking for one way to be filled this week. Seasonally, I want you to consider rest. We take 3 weeks at Christmas because I want to enjoy the holiday, and there's a lot of responsibility on me. And so I'm a homeschooler, and I get to dictate my schedule. So we take 3 weeks of Christmas. We spend one of those traveling. We spend one of those kind of doing very little, and we spend one of those cleaning up from Christmas, right? And so we take summers off at our house, and some of our friends school all year long, but for me, what I have learned is that I need the summer. I need the summer to recover and to recuperate. And so I want to encourage you to, if you need to take summers off for you so that you can have a break to put your home back together, because the school year is long and things tend to get more disheveled the longer our school year goes, then you can do that. There's other ideas. Something that's very filling to me is we have 6 kids at our house, so getting them one-on-one is wonderful, and especially as they get older and they're teenagers, taking them away one-on-one is so rich and wonderful. We spent years as homeschoolers pouring into the relationship with our kids, and so as they get older, sometimes we get to reap the benefit of that by just having them one-on-one for a tea date, or we just took a road trip with our 16-year-old. It's a tradition in our house. We take a 16-year-old road trip. My husband and I hop in the car with the 16-year-old, and we take a long weekend road trip. And so that's a way that we rest, and we do a lot of resting with our kids that weekend, a lot of playing, and it's a lot of fun. My husband and I get away once a year, just him and I. We've done that for years, and so that's a way that we can rest. Homeschool conferences. Come to MPE at the beginning of March and be refreshed and renewed. I always feel like a better parent when I return from a homeschool conference. And so I just want to encourage you that rest is something we should be regularly incorporating all year long, all week long, throughout each day. It doesn't have to be a one-off thing. We don't have to wait until we're completely on empty to take a break, to take some rest. Let's incorporate it into our lives. The last piece I want to talk about tonight regarding burnout is our mindset. I think the battle, if you're running a marathon, much of the battle, it seems like it would be really physical, but much of the battle is won in one's head, what we tell ourselves. And I think sometimes we defeat ourselves and burn ourselves out because what we tell ourselves is not true, is not whole, is not helpful. And so I brought this LaCroix with me tonight, and I was drinking it before he came, strawberry peach. And if I squeeze on this LaCroix, what will come out is strawberry peach LaCroix, because that is what is inside of the can. And I think it is true in our lives that so often we get burned out and we're frustrated and we feel like a failure and we're just in this low place, and we think, if the circumstances around me would just change, then I wouldn't feel this way, or I wouldn't be experiencing this. And yet, while that may be true, I think that often what is inside of us is squeezed by the circumstances of life, and it comes out of us. And so what we tell ourselves on the inside is really important when it comes to keeping going, persevering, and experiencing burnout. And so if what happens when the circumstances of life squeeze us is that unpleasant things come out of us, that's not the circumstances' fault, although they did squeeze us, right? It's what is inside of me. And I don't say that as a way to shame us, but as a way to open the door for God to do a redemptive work in me. And so sometimes difficult seasons, low seasons, burnout seasons can be a beautiful moment for God to come in and to show up. And he's saying, Trisha, this is the space I want to work on in you. And the only way to really see that is for it to come out of me. And so what is in comes on out. And so I want to caution us against thinking that it's someone else's fault or a circumstance's fault. Certainly unpleasant circumstances occur in our lives, but what comes up in us in that moment is what is already inside of us. I want to talk about failure. And I have 3 thoughts about failure, because so often I find in myself and in others, burnout is tied to failure. We're feeling bad about how things are going. We're feeling like a failure. Things are not working, and we get lower and lower about that. And so the first thing I want to say is something you probably tell your kids all the time, which is failure is part of learning. And if you are homeschooling children and parenting, you are learning. And so we tell our kids this, and we need to embrace this truth, because I want my kids to embrace the truth that failure is not evidence of anything, but that they are trying, right? They're trying, and they're learning, and they're growing, and there's going to be failure associated with that. And so if you are trying and learning and growing next to your kids, you are going to experience failure. We want to impart that mindset to our kids, and so we need to possess that mindset. Failure is where we meet Jesus and where we receive his grace and acknowledge that he alone is able to help us get things right. It is his grace, and it's by his goodness and his grace that we ever get anything right, right? And the next thing I want to say about failure is that we cannot be everything at once. I read this recently on Kelsey Sism's, I may be mispronouncing her name, but I think it's SCISM webpage, and it's just really stuck with me. She talked about how she was talking about something else, but I think about how homeschool moms are cooks and housekeepers and wives, and they're moms, and they're in charge of schooling people and calling insurance companies. We just wear all these hats. Some of us are employees, and so we're also we have an employer over us. And so if we're not careful, I think we regularly and repeatedly find a way to defeat ourselves, because here's how it looks. When I'm working, I feel like I should be sitting on the floor playing with my kid, or I'm lamenting that I'm not. I'm acknowledging that I'm failing as a mother because I'm not reading books to my kids, or I can't put the puzzle together with them. And then when I'm sitting and putting the puzzle together with them, I am telling myself that I'm a bad housekeeper, because what I should be doing is laundry. And when I'm doing the laundry, I tell myself that I'm a bad wife, because I should be spending time with my husband, because I haven't spent any time with him today. And what you see is that no matter what we do, we can tell ourselves in our mind that we're just a failure. I'm a failure as a mom. But actually what you are is, as you are an employee, you are being a good, and right now I can be a good employee, and right now I can be a good housekeeper, and right now I can be a parent that is present. And so I want to encourage you to keep your eyes fixed on what you're doing, and to celebrate what you are doing, and to not continually celebrate the things that you are falling short in. Certainly we fall short in plenty, but I don't think that God calls us to live in that kind of defeat, but to rather acknowledge his goodness, and that he has gifted us with this time and this opportunity right now to do the thing that is in front of us. And so we are doing our best at that thing in front of us. And so I want to encourage you to not borrow that trouble and that failure. Acknowledging that right now I'm being a mom who reads aloud to her kids is a good way to acknowledge my limitedness. I am not limitless. God is limitless, and I am limited, and he has made me such. And so when it is time, I will do the next thing. But right now, I'm going to be present here, and I'm going to celebrate right here. The last thing I want to acknowledge about failure is that we've sort of already brushed this, but we are not enough. I am not enough, and we will fall short for our children, and we will fall short for our spouse, and we will fall short for our homeschool. And I am convinced, although it's a difficult thing sometimes to bear as a mom and a wife and a homeschooler, I'm convinced that this is a good thing. Our kids need Jesus. They don't need a perfect mom. And when we do not meet them, God opens the door for him to meet them. And so we can rest and trust him that when we fall short, that he is always present and he is always available for our children. The last thing I want to say before we close and I take questions tonight is this. The first race that my husband and I, the first marathon that we ever ran, we both got hurt. In the week that we trained to run 16 miles, we both got injured. And we were so close to finishing to the race time that we just decided to run the race. And what happened was that when we got to mile 16, we couldn't really run any further. We were out of gas. And so we walked the last 10 miles. But you know what we did? We finished that race. And there is nothing in your homeschool journey that is not recoverable, because God is a redeemer. And even if you have to slow down, and even if we have to let go of some curriculum this year, he can redeem that. And we can still finish the race. Sometimes we need to slow down. And sometimes if we're burned out, it's time to slow down. But it doesn't mean we are disqualified from the race. It just means we might not finish the race as fast as we thought. If you're in a place of burnout, I want to encourage you to get help. Sometimes my husband and I have been hurt while we've been training for a run, and we had to seek expert help in order to recover and figure out how to move forward. And so you may be in that place with burnout. And I want you to encourage you. There are lots of good resources out there, like Sarah McKenzie's Teaching from Rest, an excellent burnout resource. And then there are spouses, there are friends, there are wise, godly people who have gone before us. There are veteran homeschoolers. There are people in your church, married couples who would love to come alongside you. And so there's also at the top of that list the Lord. Ask Him for help. He meets us when we are low and weak. And so lean on the community God has given you and ask the Lord continually for help. I'm going to end with two things, and they are about perseverance. My husband and I have this quote that we pass back and forth by a guy named Jacob Reese, and it's about a stonecutter. And here's what it says. It says, "When nothing seems to help, I go and look at a stonecutter, hammering away at a rock perhaps 100 times without as much as a crack showing in it. Yet at the 101st blow, it will split in two. And I know it was not that blow that did it, but all that had gone before." I think so often as homeschoolers, we just hammer at the rock and we think, this isn't doing anything. This isn't working. We've done this before. Why isn't this working? Be patient. Persevere. I think the crack is coming. Paul says it like this in Galatians 6:9. He says that if we do not give up, do not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest of righteousness if we do not give up. And so my best encouragement to you tonight is to not give up when you are feeling low, when you are feeling burned out, when you feel like your kids are never going to get there and you are never going to get there. I want to encourage you to keep going, to put one more foot in front of the other. And you will, like all those that have come before you, you will get across that finish line. Whether it's this school year or whether it's the high school graduation finish line. God is faithful, and He will meet you every step of the way. We're going to take a minute to look at comments here. She usually helps me here. We're going to take a look at comments. If you guys have questions, drop them in there, and we will be happy to answer questions. And otherwise, Shanksy's going to pull one of our winners out, new to homeschooling. Thank you, Tyra and Jordan. Blessings to you as you homeschool. I'm excited for you. Some good comments in here. What would you say to the mom that feels isolated, who wants to run the race with others but can't find community nearby? That's a great question, Shanksy. I covered a little bit of that, but I think, again, good resources. I'm a resource. I do homeschool consultations one-on-one. We talk about anything you want. So finding a resource like that, finding a good podcast that might encourage you. But I would encourage you to find other moms online. MPE is gonna, if you're in the Kansas, Missouri area, MPE is gonna be a wonderful resource for you to find other homeschoolers who are where you are, who are feeling what you're feeling. And so I would, in the digital age, I would encourage you to keep looking. Don't give up. Ask the MPE folks if they can help you find homeschoolers in your area. I bet you will find them. Being connected to a local church is huge in finding others who might just come alongside you and encourage you in your journey. Any other thoughts or questions tonight before we go? All right. I'm just going to give one more minute here. All right, we are going to select a giveaway winner, and Shanksy will put me in contact with our giveaway winner tonight, and we will get you a priority planner. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks so much for being part. Let me just pray us out of here. God, would you bless each one who's in earshot or who might hear this in the days to come? Would you give them strength? Would you give them perseverance? Would you bless them with others to run the race together? Would you give them wisdom and insight as they seek to shepherd the hearts of their children? And would you help them to persevere to the very end? God, thank you that you are with us each step of the way. In your name we pray. Amen. Blessings to each of you. Thanks so much for being here. All right, Tyra and Jordan. Oh, I'm so excited for you guys to win that. We will be in touch shortly. So excited for you to win the Priority Planner. I think it's going to be a blessing to you as you get going with homeschooling. All right, blessings to all of you. We'll see you at MPE first weekend of March. Looking forward to being with you, MPE homeschoolers.